Contractually obligated. What's up, guys? My name's Mark, and this is GM Prep for Blades in the Dark, a game that I happen to be running. Forewarn now, there might be some spoilers. In fact, there's got to be spoilers. So if you haven't watched the other videos in the series that are probably somewhere over there, then I'm gonna ruin everything right now. And you should maybe watch those first if you really want to watch the GM prep, if you want to know all my deep dark secrets about what's going on in the game. If you have watched those and you don't care about spoilers, well then sit back and strap in because we're gonna talk about some GM and stuff today. And in fact, I'm not gonna talk a whole lot about what I have planned for the game itself, but more some considerations when these sort of situations arise. So, to extrapolate on that and actually make some sense, what happened in the last session? Well, the PCs pissed off the Red Sashes by killing their leader, and so the Red Sashes attacked them and savaged them brutally. Not really. The PCs actually ended up savaging the Red Sashes pretty brutally. The whole session turned out to be the Red Sashes attack, which was very convenient because that meant I had to prep next to nothing. That wasn't really the intention. I had some other stuff planned, but yeah, it's combat in a role playing game, and even in Powered by the Apocalypse type of games, which this one is, um, you know, even in those situations, in a game, it doesn't run fast necessarily. It's you zoom in on the action, you take your beats, I guess, and you keep moving, but you know. And I would say that I actually probably went a little easy on the PCs, somewhat. I was planning on making that fight a bit more difficult, a bit more overwhelming on the Red Sash's part, but it's tough to do that in a 3 hour session, and I didn't really want it to run over into the next session necessarily, just because stopping in the middle of combat is yeah, yeah, that gets squirrely. I don't care for it. So I actually probably would have made the Red Sashes a bit of a tougher fight. Um, there would have been more of them. They would have come in from multiple places. But eh, you know, you work with what you got. Um, but something interesting happened at the end of the session, which is really I should cut this out because I cannot speak, but I'm not going to. You're just gonna have to deal with it. So yeah, at the end of last session, Timothy totally flubbed his sway roll and ended up getting carted off to jail. Um, there's a lot of dead bodies in the streets. Things went bad, and he got carted off to jail, where he is going to be questioned. And so I actually thought we'd start the next session with that, assuming that Timothy's going to be there. I believe he is. Um, but yeah, an interrogation session or scene, I guess. I'm gonna definitely be doing some good cop, bad cop. I'm gonna be using Bowman as the bad cop, and the guy, I just forgot his name, LaRose, as a good cop. And I'm interested in seeing what happens, honestly, because Danny, Timothy's player, ended up buying with his stuff that he got from last session. He ended up buying a couple slide powers that deal with manipulating people and all that sort of stuff. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing those in action and just seeing him try to talk his way out of it. If he's really, really good at talking his way out of it, he could actually end up sending someone else to prison for their crimes, which in this game is kind of cool because there are prison claims and there are wanted levels, and you can get rid of wanted levels by going to jail, but you might actually get shit out of jail too, just depending on how it goes. So I'm kind of interested in seeing if that plays out. If he ends up sending someone else to jail and blah, blah, blah. Now, one of the things that I've had a little bit of issue with, just a little bit of trouble sometimes in apocalypse worldy, Blades in the Dark type of games, is, as I've mentioned before, coming up with consequences. And, a lot of times I have like two or three, that are just sort of sitting there in my mind, like, oh, this is how this could get worse. And then a roll happens, and you're like, yes, now is the time. But social situations, I think, are a particularly stumbling block. Which is interesting for me because I'm actually a big social GM, not a social person. Good Lord, no. But as a GM, I tend to, prefer the NPC interactions. I used to make a joke back in the day that it wasn't a real game until there were at least 100 NPCs. It wasn't really a joke when I said that. I've run multiple games with more than 100 NPCs. Um, yeah, I think I even mentioned earlier in some GM prep 2 episodes ago about how my go-to is just to run a party. Everybody shows up at the party. You invite a whole bunch of different NPCs you want to see interact with the PCs, and then yeah, and then you just go. Um, but I think that actually introduces an interesting problem in Blades in the Dark, Powered by the Apocalypse. Games with consequences, I will say, or success with failure. No, success with failure. That makes no sense. Success at a cost. That's what I meant to say. Um, is when I'm, in a conversation, conversing with a PC as an NPC. Um, Sometimes it's a little difficult to think of appropriate consequences at the time, and devil's bargains are especially difficult because I always tend to think of, okay, here's the consequence if this roll doesn't go well. But then there's this devil's bargain I also maybe need to think of. And so that ends up being like, okay, well, how can I make this worse or have a different consequence? I don't know. So that's something I'm going to be trying to work on for that next session is just come up with a few better consequences for the social interaction. Just because I don't know how it's going to go, and it always seems to me like Timothy, puts himself in these situations where he needs to get massive sway rolls, and then he just rolls terribly. So it never seems to work out for him. Um, Not that I necessarily want to go easy on him, but hey, okay. The thing I really wanted to talk about, or at least I said at the top that I was going to talk about, um, is this weird little wanted system in Blades in the Dark. So, if you don't know, the PCs, their crew, the Grave Eels, have wanted level of 2. Yeah, wanted level of 2. Um, which is bad. That means the cops show up in massive force whenever they do something, and the only way to get rid of it is to go to jail, as I've mentioned. Jail is kind of a long term prospect. And so that seems really weird to me in a role playing game where one of the PCs could conceivably go to jail and then be in jail for a bunch of sessions. Realistic, yeah, but not fun necessarily. Now, Blades in the Dark, says, if this happens, make another PC, play that character. It's supposed to be a gang. It's not just these, two or three or four PCs doing everything. I mean, there are, other people in this gang that we may not have even really mentioned, but there are other people in the gang, so it makes sense that someone could jump in as another character or whatever if their main PC is in jail. But that raises the other question of, again, is that really fun? Because I don't know, I get invested in my characters that I play, and then you'd be like, oh, you don't get to play that character. You can play another character, but you can't play that one. I'd be like, eh, I'll just stay home. you know? So I'm not sure. Now, if like a convention type of game or something that you're like a one shot or even like a two or three shot, really, yeah, you know, I'll totally switch out characters. I'll play whatever you want me to. I'm cool with that. Um, but after 4 or 5 months of playing the same character, do you just want to give them up and move on? I mean, sometimes you do because you're tired of that character, or you just don't like what they're going, or it makes perfect sense for their story. And why would you ruin a good story with your selfish whims of wanting to continue to play that character? No, I mean, whatever. I mean, I have certainly done that in the past where you go, yeah, this is definitely the end of my character right here. This makes total sense. And sure, the game's going to continue on, and yes, I should probably come up with another character, but I might not. I might not be able to invest in as much in my next character as the first one. A lot of times that's because I think, hey, we told a good story. Um, let's tell a different story, maybe in a different game. When the other stories of the other PCs are continuing, but your story is done, it's a little bit like, eh. And I'd rather just start a new story with everybody. So yeah, that was all just my personal feelings on the matter. But do the PCs have that same feeling? I guess I should say the players, not the PCs. Who cares what the PCs think? They're not real. Um, players, yeah. I mean, as far as from what I know of my players, yeah, they would not be happy with giving up one character to play another, or sending their character to prison. So that's a weird situation in games, and I'm not sure how we're gonna handle it. Um, yeah, I don't really know. Timothy could just roll really terribly and end up going to jail. There's the old dice cheating trick to keep him out of jail if that happens. Except, oh, look, I don't actually roll any dice. Only the players roll dice. So they can't cheat, and or I wouldn't let them cheat. um so we could just end up in a situation that is just unhappy for everyone. Um don't know what we're going to do. I guess that's the nature of the game. You go into a gang game, you got to expect maybe that you're going to have to do some time. As Jim likes to say, all this shit is mine. I mean, you got to have the fall guy, right? You got to have the fall guy in gangs. Timothy could be that fall guy. And he might be okay with it because his schedule, sometimes doesn't work with our schedule. So he might know that he's going to be missing the next couple sessions and just be like, yeah, it's cool. I'll go to jail. Uh, that'd probably be the best situation that we could get out of this. Um, but I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one, and I don't quite know how to handle it. Um, and I could go off on a big old rant about dice cheating and all that stuff, but it's really not applicable to this game, so I won't. But if you do want to hear it, I guess you can leave comments, and I'll pick it up in the next session, maybe. Some GM prep about cheating on the dice. Spoiler alert, I'm not a fan. All right. So you may have noticed here on the screen that I've added another clock for the Spirit Wardens. Why was that? Because there's a lot of dead red sashes in Six Towers now for some reason. Um, Now the PCs do have hagfish. That's their name. I wanted to call them mudfish. I know that's their other name, but yeah, hagfish. They've got a hagfish farm, so they can definitely get rid of the bodies, as well as they can. What's the hagfish farm do? Like minus heat? Yeah. And uh, you know, the red sash just died right outside their building, so I may get some pushback when they first hear about this Spirit Warden's clock. Um, because of that. But my reasoning is that the a lot of the red sashes died out in the street, and so even if the bodies do get cleaned up with the hagfish farm, it was still real obvious that a lot of people died. Also, the blue coats showed up right at the end and carted Timothy off to jail. So they know that there's a lot of dead bodies around. And so, yes, the PCs can go around and clean up after themselves a bit, but still a whole lot of, shit went down. And their crew does not have the assassin ability that suppresses ghosts when they kill someone. So the ghosts are still going to be around. Hagfish Farm doesn't stop that. It just gets rid of the evidence. So that's why I added that Spirit Warden's clock. Also, I felt kind of bad that there was this clock sitting in Crowsfoot, and the PCs never go there. So it really didn't matter. So I threw in another Spirit Warden clock for that. Yeah, all them dead bodies. The Spirit Wardens may want to investigate, or they may just send some guys around and I don't know, send some guys around. I guess that's what they do. Um, yeah. So the interrogation probably won't take up the whole session. If it does, that's quite an interrogation, and I hope all the other players are interested in hearing what Timothy has to say. Because, yeah. Um, or maybe their next plot could be to break Timothy out of jail. Who knows? Besides all that, there is some other stuff, that I do have planned. Some other things I still want to work in. I obviously still want to work in the ink rakes, especially since the PCs just basically just wrote them a story, wrote them some front page material. Yeah. So that could happen. I'm also expecting that the next job that the PCs go on will probably be for revenge on the Red Sashes. They were definitely wondering in the session about who's running the Red Sashes now that Mylera is dead, and who sent all these Red Sashes here, and all that sort of thing. So there might be some fun new NPCs showing up later, maybe. I tried to make that like a super secret sexy hint, like I have all this devious shit planned. But really I just said right now, hey, maybe there should be another Red Sash NPC. No, I knew there should probably be another Red Sash NPC. But what his plans are and how he works, and whoa, I just decided he was male. I guess that's how that worked. Um, yeah, we'll see. We'll see where that goes. Yeah. One other cool thing that happened in the last session was Edland handed the GM a gift. I always enjoy when players, you know, give back in the game. He wants Stasia's head preserved in a jar, pickled. I am assuming. I don't know. So basically he's just given me a mouthpiece to all the weird occult shenanigans that have been going on that the PCs have been ignoring. Um, I wouldn't necessarily say they've been ignoring it. They don't necessarily have the tools to handle occult stuff, but there is a big occult element to this game. I mean, there are ghosts and lightning fields and all kinds of shit. So all that stuff's been there and it's been percolating in the background, but it's a cult, so it's underground. But then again, they're a gang and they're underground. Not the two forces meet somewhere in the middle. Hey, they just did in Stasia's head. Yeah, I've got a mouthpiece that he carries in a jar. I guess. No, yeah, that's always a cool thing when players, give you that oh, I really like this NPC, or hey, I want to know more about this. Here is exactly how I'm going to find out more about this, and it just perfectly works as a GM mouthpiece. And it really is. I mean, in this case, it's literally a GM mouthpiece, but some sort of mouthpiece for the GM in the party. That's always appreciated and good. Of course, usually that ends up happening where a GM will just sort of insert an NPC into the group. I've done that many, many a times. Sometimes they resent it. Sometimes they really like that person. It just kind of depends. Um, I didn't really have any NPCs within the gang when they started. It was all PCs. That's expanded a little bit now that they've got some cohorts, and of course they always had their contacts and all that sort of stuff. But their relationship with them is always, well, I will go to them to find out something, not necessarily we're hanging out and this person has an opinion about what we're about to do. Um, that hasn't been there yet. And not that Stasia's gonna be a big opinion holder in in that regard, but it is nice to finally get that little helpful GM tool in there. So yeah, I think that's pretty much all the things I had to talk about today. It wasn't a huge amount of prep, which you may be expecting. But then again, do I ever really do a huge amount of prep in these things? Not really, but I also think that's kind of the goal, is to show how you don't have to do prep, or how the amount of prep that you're doing is probably too much. That we've all been guilty of that. I'm still guilty of that, even to this day. Games I'm thinking about running after this game have got big elaborate things that I'm trying to build and things, and you're just like, you know what? I'm over preparing. I am way over preparing. It's fun. If you enjoy the preparation, then do it. I mean, that's yeah. If you're having fun, then keep doing it. But over the years, I have found that most of my prep goes to waste, and so I don't like to do a ton of it if I don't have to. Some prep I enjoy, but some prep I don't, and so I tend to try to just do the prep that I enjoy and hope that that's enough to carry me through. Sometimes it isn't. You have probably witnessed in some of these sessions where I am just at a loss for what to do next, and some prep would have really helped that. Um, I didn't do it though. So, this is your lazy GM prep. I don't. It's not really laziness. It's just I think there's a certain amount that you can do, especially when you know your own abilities and your own foibles and your own the way that you run games. You can change up your prep if you're always really well prepared for combat. Then let me rephrase that, because I used the word prepared and I shouldn't have used that word in a sentence. But when I was talking about prep, if you are really good at running off the cuff combat, you know all the THACO numbers, you've got them all memorized. All you need to know is, their hit die or whatever, and you can just go to town with all the numbers that you have memorized. Then you don't need to do a lot of, PC, NPC fight. prep, but maybe you suck at maps, and so you should prep a little bit more for those. My own strengths as a GM, I'm actually terrible at math, and I never use maps, and I almost never come up with stats for NPCs, which is one reason I really like Blades in the Dark because I don't have to. Um, but I mean, I think generally my strengths are giving the PC situations where they need to consult with each other to move forward. A lot of intrigues, I guess would be the way to say it. Throw intrigues at them, and then they need to respond in some way, and that usually leads to a discussion amongst the players, amongst NPCs that might also happen to be there. I'm pretty strong at that, I would say. Just keeping those things loose and but still keeping the plot. I guess. Well, I don't want to say plotting is my strength because actually that's one of the things I struggle with. But I think um, machinations within plots. This is a terrible example I'm giving. Um, so let me move on to a different strength that I think I have. I think I'm pretty good with social situations. Like I said, those parties and things. Sometimes I feel like my NPCs are a little bit lacking in the personality department, but the fact that I can keep 8 or 9 of them, straight in my head and also be able to, think about what they would be thinking about while the PCs are interacting with them, I think that's generally a strength. You may disagree after seeing some of these videos, and I'll admit I've struggled a little bit in this game with that. Um, but so like those sort of situations, I don't tend to do prep for. The prep I tend to do is the kind of the things that I know that I'm bad at, or that I know might come up, or the things that take a bit more time. So I will often, pre-roll some NPCs. In fact, I've got a few in my notes here that I actually haven't even used yet, and that's just writing down. That's just using the Blades in the Dark random NPC creator charts. But I just roll those up beforehand. I just got a couple written down. Just so I don't have to sit there and roll. I always feel weird in games when the GM goes, "Oh, wait a minute," and then has to consult the rulebook. I tend to want to even if I don't know what the rulebook says, and I really want to know what the rulebook says, I kind of want to move past that. Um, I think my own brain trips me up on that a lot of times because my own brain says, "No, you must know the actual rule," and you know. So I forgot where I was going with all of that, except to say that you should do the amount of prep that you should do. That was very wise, what I just said. So, if you want to hear other bites of wisdom from me and or other people that I happen to know, you can follow this channel. You'll get all of our videos right there in your new video channel box thing. You can follow us on YouTube right here. You can follow us on Facebook, Tackle Podcast. You can follow us on Twitch, Tackle Podcast. Watch those sessions live. Those are pretty exciting live here. We got I did say the Facebook, right? Yeah. All right. How about the Twitter? Did I mention the Twitter? Because we have Twitter. It's Tackle Podcast. We also have a Patreon if you want to throw us some money for doing these things. It's nice. We don't really want your money necessarily. I mean, I want your money. I want everybody's money. I would like all the money. But what we're doing here, we just want to get some good equipment, upgrade some stuff, make it better. Every little dollar helps. Thanks.